Great, let's get started. Good morning, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, whatever time zone it might be for you. Thank you for joining this call. My name is Toby Gerhard. I'm the vice president, the president-elect, sorry, that's the title, president-elect of the society. And the purpose of this call that I'm introducing here is really just kind of a little bit of a new initiative that we have to basically clarify for all incoming but also existing leaders of committees, councils, special interest group, regional interest groups, just clarify the position. Kind of historically, a lot of that was kind of word of mouth, and your predecessors would have briefed you on kind of how things work. And we just wanted to, as part of our new strategic plan, as the society grows, to make this a little more professional and try to really put in one document kind of all the things that all the leaders in the society should really know about. Mary Beth and where is she? I'm losing her here. Oh, here, Ursula. Sorry, Mary Beth and Ursula did over the past months really a wonderful job in the last iteration of the Strategic Planning Committee to put together a slide set, and we wanted to give you an opportunity to see that and have both of them walk you through it. The other piece that I think is really important is, particularly in a time where we haven't had in-person meetings for a while, was just kind of to introduce ourselves. Myself as president-elect, I want to make sure that all of you have at least seen my face, knew who I am, feel comfortable, reaching out to me. I know many of you over the years, but there are a couple of new faces, and I wish I had the opportunity to, meet you in person at the meetings, or have met you at the meetings. Hopefully, we'll be able to do that soon. But feel free, I'll be working with in my role as president-elect, we'll be working with the Strategic Planning Committee to kind of implement the strategic plan of the society, and this really involves all of you. The Strategic Planning Committee can do almost nothing without the support of the councils, committees, SIGs, RIGs, and so on. So you'll be hearing from me and us on the Strategic Planning Committee, and please work with us, but also in the reverse. Please feel free, if you have concerns, questions, ideas, to reach out to us. We won't be able to take on everything right away, but we'll make sure to get back to you always, and to take into consideration whatever we can. It's really, if it's not clear, I personally love ISB. It's my favorite society by far. I've been an ISB member since I was a student quite a long time ago now. This society really works from the grassroots up, and it's really a pleasure and an honor to serve as president-elect and on the Strategic Planning Committee with you. And with that, I want to keep it. I'm really looking forward to working with all of you during the coming year, and then after that as president. But with that, I want to leave it and hand over to Mary Beth and Ursula. And I have to apologize myself. I have to run off. My daughter has a doctor's appointment that I have to take her to, but it's not for lack of interest, but some things have priorities. But I'm sure Mary Beth and Ursula will do a wonderful job walking you through all the things that you may or may not have already known about, your roles as leaders in the society. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Toby. So thank you for this kind introduction. I'm Ursula Kirchmeier. I work in the Department of Epidemiology in the Lazio region in Italy. And I'm a pharmacoepidemiologist, and I'm a member of the board and of the Strategic Planning Committee of our society. And together with Mary Beth Ritchie, who's also a member of both, we developed these slides. And I would really like to take the opportunity to thank Mary Beth. She did a tremendous job, and without her, this would not have been possible at all. So thank you. We will share this. I will start and then hand over to Mary Beth, and then we will switch again and we will both answer your questions. So as Toby already mentioned, the motivation to do this was that there was some variability in the knowledge among the leaders of what the expectations are, what you should do in your communities, which resources you have to do that, and how you can manage your groups. So I share my screen. Can you see my slides? Okay. So, well, this is just a brief introduction. This information obviously is for all kinds of leaders in our society, and it's updated as of August of this year. And our intention is to update this yearly, and maybe also to have a kind of workshop as this one every year for the new leaders. So you can then find all the slides also on the web page, and you can send your questions throughout the year or your suggestions to improve it to Shannon in the executive office. And thank you all for representing ISPI. So this is like the index of our presentation, and I will start immediately just repeating a little bit about what ISPI is. So this is an international association, and it's dedicated to advancing the health, the public health. And how do we aim to do this? Where we provide a global forum for the exchange of scientific information regarding obviously drugs, but biologics, but also devices, delivery, use, costs and value, adverse and beneficial effects, and therapeutic risk management. We also sponsor educational opportunities, and we advocate for pharmacoepidemiology, including research in pharmacovigilance, drug utilization, comparative effectiveness, and therapeutic risk management. So who are we? Well, our society, as of May 2021, sorry, there's somebody having the microphone open. Can you please? Okay, thank you. So there are about 2,100 members in 75 countries, and 60% of the members live and work in the Americas, about 30% in Europe, Middle East and Africa, and 12% in Asia Pacific. So this is, let's say, the diagram of the structure of the organization. You can see the members, and then you have the board of directors working together with the executive office, where we have the executive secretary and the staff, and the executive committee. Then we have the journal and the journal editor, and then we have all the communities you represent. There are committees, councils, RICs, SIGs, and student chapters. So in this moment, the executive committee, which is a kind of government, let's say, is composed, as you see. Well, it's this is because there are several roles who are automatically in the executive committee, like the president-elect, and the vice president finance, the immediate past president, and then the executive secretary and the vice president finance elect. So here you can see their faces. These are the colleagues taking over the duties this year. Then there's the board of directors, and the directors represent the different geographic areas, but also the sectors like government, regulatory, academia, industry, and service provider. So what are the principles of committees? Well, we have 16 standing committees this year, and they are a kind of working arm of our society. They are formally designated by the board for a specific purpose, and they have a mission. And the mission obviously is agreed by the board and published in the policy manual and also on the website. So the body of work of the committee is ongoing. Well, it's not just the annual meeting, but from one meeting to the other, there are tasks carried forward. Obviously, there is a degree of autonomy of the committees, but they are directly responsible to the board and dependent on board approval prior to incurring obligations on the part of the society. And they must report to the board twice a year. There may also be subcommittees, but they are not directly accountable to the board, but to the respective parent committee. So how are members involved? In committees, well, there are, the committees runs the programs, projects, and special initiatives. And there are committees which are open to all members, and you see them on the left side. And then there are other committees which are open only to members appointed by the board. And you can see them on the right side. The principles of the councils, and they're the councils, they are the same, the principles are the same as for the committees, but the exception is that the councils have been created to deliberate sector-specific issues, because there's an academic council, industry council, the regulatory and government council, and the student council. So the council have their own governance, but obviously they are subject to approval by the board. So what are the principles of the special interest groups? So very similar to the committees, but they create the specific scientific issue, because the special interest groups are obviously thematic. So there's a topic they focus on, and this is developed by the group. So the governance is self-determining, but they are subject to approval by the board also. So there are some guidelines which have been developed, for example, for the selection of the chairs, because we observed that there was quite a variability between the groups, and we thought it was important to harmonize that. So in the councils, as I said, the 4 key sectors are represented: academia, government, regulatory, industry, service provider, and students. And in the 6, we have the different topics, and you can see those 6 which are active at the moment. They facilitate the interaction among all the members of ISPE who have an interest in a specific topic in pharmacoepidemiology. They offer a platform to, let's say, to work on this topic. The regional interest groups are defined by the area you live and work in. There's an African one, a Brazilian, Latin American, Spanish, and the Gulf region interest group. And so they facilitate the interaction among ISPE members living in and working in these areas, and try to network among them. The policies on the activities of committees, councils, SIGs, and RIGs are outlined in the policy manual. And the policy manual is published on our website, so you can see the link here. And especially in section 5.1, you will find the principles and of the committees and of councils, SIGs, and RIGs, and the subsequent chapters 5.2, 4, and 5. And you can always see the latest version of the policy manual on the website.
Thank you, Ursula. And I would encourage all of you to read section 5 of the policy manual, because it does cover everything that's in this next slides. In addition, I would encourage you to read the section of policy 11 that references your committee, your SIG, your RIG, etc. And I'm going to start by walking through the committees, not because they are more important than other entities and other groups, but because all of our functions are based off of committees. And so whether you are in leadership for a committee, for a SIG, for a RIG, or for a council, the starting function is with the committees. And you'll be responsible for everything in these first sets of slides. There's a little bit of nuance between the committees and some of the others, and I'll cover that after. So first is the leadership roles. Each committee has a chair and a vice chair, and these roles are filled by members of ISPE. Preferably for committees, there are as a chair and a vice chair who are from different continents, and so they're representing different points of view from that regard. And it may be that the committee chooses to have co-chairs appointed rather than a chair and a vice chair. As someone cycles through leadership and then sticks with a committee over time, the retiring committee chairs also remain in leadership as a past chair. Next slide. So these committee chairs are appointed on an annual basis. The committee nominates and votes on their chair and vice chair. And then the chair and vice chair are formally appointed by the executive committee. These are typically staggered 2-year terms. That is, a person is in the vice chair role for 2 years, followed by in the chair role for 2 years. However, we do recognize that some committees do have a different sort of structure. Next slide. Committee chairs are responsible for many things. In particular, the chair is the individual who takes the minutes and circulates them to the committee as well as to the board. In addition, the chair is responsible for attending board meetings and representing the point of view of that committee. The chair will run the meetings both at the annual meeting for that committee, as well as throughout the year. And the chair is the one who ensures that all of the objectives, the activities for that particular year, are met by that committee. If there is a budget need, then the chair is the one who would submit the budget request to the executive secretary, and the vice chair is responsible for fulfilling all of these roles if the chair is not able to do so. In addition, there are board reports, at least expected annually, but there is an opportunity to provide a board report semi-annually, and we would ask from the board that you present information on what's going on in your committee so that we can all be aware. The current template for that report is on the next slide, and the board report template will be sent to you by the executive secretary about 1 month before the due date so that you can complete this and send it to the board. Next slide. So the members who are part of committees let us know annually if they are interested in continuing with a committee. And so you may have seen that there was a call for those who wanted to say, yes, indeed, I want to continue with my appointment on this particular committee that came out this past July. We followed up after the annual meeting for new members so that those individuals would have the opportunity to join committees as well. Typically, for the open committees, all those who indicate interest would join that committee for the year and be able to engage in the work for that committee. However, there are some committees where more information is needed. And so for those, people would indicate their interest, and where appropriate, new committee members would be added to those more restricted committees based on board appointment or need from that committee. Next slide. So for this, there's an annual calendar of events that really happens for each of our committees, each of our groups, in fact. There's a call for interested members in July, followed by the acceptance of all of the new members in August and the start for the year. Similarly, there's a submission of the board report in July, letting us know what's happened over the past year and getting ready for the next year, so that in August, the new chair and co-chair are confirmed and can start through the year really engaged and moving forward for that committee. The groups meet at the ICPE and then meet as needed following up. There's a new kind of resurgence of all of the interested members pulling through in August and September, such that that new committee can be functioning throughout the fall and the spring and commit to their ongoing work for the rest of the year. Next slide. So there is that meeting that happens at the annual ICPE. In addition, there are other meetings as needed for each committee. At least 2 meetings need to happen per year. However, we notice that many committees are much more active, especially through the fall and the spring. And therefore, during those times, we would expect that there would be much more engagement for different meetings that happen for those committees. When there is a meeting at ICPE, it should not conflict with other aspects of the conference program. And on written request, the ISBE office is able to help with making arrangements for these committee meetings as well. As I mentioned, communication is required from the chair to the members of the committee. There's a minimum of twice per year, though we know with many of our committees that is happening much more frequently these days. Next slide. Those reports happen twice per year and are sent to the board to talk about the function of the committee, what the goals were and how the committee has worked to achieve those goals through the year, and what milestones have been achieved to date. There's typically a call for the board reports in around June, such that they are submitted in July for the August meeting, and then again in February, such that they are submitted in March for the April board meeting as well. If there's a need for an action or a request from the board, that gets placed into the board report, and the chair would be the one who goes and attends the board meeting and asks the question or makes any necessary board presentation based on that board report. In addition, the board reports are utilized to keep the membership of ISBE informed of the activities, and therefore information from those reports is posted onto the ISBE website. So if you are interested in getting the current report template, then you can get in touch with James and the PAI executive group. So we do have many subcommittees that are part of our standing committees. Sometimes a subcommittee is there to attack a particular issue. Sometimes they are standing subcommittees over an extended period of time. For those, the subcommittees are under the purview of the committee chairs. So the subcommittee chairs would attend the committee meetings and let everyone in the committee know what's going on. In addition, the subcommittee would provide the information on their activities such that they could be included within the committee report to the board. The subcommittee chairs are not required to submit anything on their own, nor are they expected to attend the board meetings. So that's the long and short on committees. For councils, on the next slide, there are a couple of differences from committees. First is the membership. Membership for councils is for those who have a primary occupational affiliation within the 4 sectors that are represented. In addition, there's a single year for the chair and the vice chair to be elected there. And so there's a subject to executive committee concurrence for those leadership roles. Next slide. The special interest groups are formed a bit differently than committees and councils. Their formation is based on general interest in ISBE and a petition sent to the board with signatures from at least 5 ISBE members, including 1 FISBE. The leadership there is elected subject to concurrence by the executive committee. Per the policy manual, staggered 3-year terms are recommended of our chair and a chair. However, we know that there are many different configurations for the leadership of SIGs. The SIGs do not necessarily have standing meetings, though if there's interest, then they can request a meeting time for the scientific program committee for the ICB meeting. And SIGs may come into being, be present for a time, and then be removed. And typical reasons that a SIG might be removed would be the request from the SIG that there is no longer special interest, that there is no evidence of sustained activity, and therefore they would request themselves to be removed, or the board would say that they haven't submitted reports and therefore they may go on promotion and then be removed from inaction as well. RIGs are very similar to SIGs in that their formation occurs based on stated interest and signatures from at least 5 ISBE members, including 1 FISBE, including the region and the mission for that particular group. The Global Development Committee is the group that would recommend the formation of a new regional interest group to the board, and the regional interest groups work hand in hand with the Global Development Committee. Leadership here is similar to SIGs in that there's a chair and vice chair elected by the membership, subject to concurrence by the executive committee, with that staggered 3-year vice chair recommended as well. Here again, if the RIG has interest in meeting at the annual meeting, then they would request time from the scientific program committee, and the RIG may indeed be removed by their own request, or if there's no evidence of sustained activity as well. Next slide. So that brings us through to our whirlwind tour of everything that is in the policy manual in regards to these particular groups. And I would really encourage you to read more in depth in the policy manual, though use this slide deck for cheat sheets. Ursula, back to you.
Yeah, we thought it was useful to take the opportunity to speak about some special aspects. One is communication within ISPE, because we very much invite all of you to use ISPE Exchange also for the communication within your community. There's a file repository for meeting minutes, and you can use it for discussion with continued communication between the meetings. You can have updates sent to your email, and there's also the chapter on how to available, because maybe it's not so immediate, but once you use it, you will find it very useful, and it's very good because there you have all the members together, and it's a platform by our society, run by our society, and that's the right place to communicate. Another communication opportunity, obviously, was the outside of ISPE is the website. Each committee, council, SIG, and RIG have their own chapter on the website, which is updated annually, but it obviously depends on the community itself. You can send your updates to the PAI, and then they will update it on the website. Here you have the link where you can find all the information on the groups. I hand over to Mary Beth.
Thank you. These next 3 slides are about the ISPE Manuscript Initiative. We know that many groups at ISPE are very interested in this, and so we thought that we would get the information here all together for you. ISPE does have an annual funding cycle for manuscripts, and so there are groups, writing groups from the different SIGs, RIGs, etc., who are interested in being part of a writing group, and therefore they submit to this particular manuscript initiative. Once they are moving through this process, then they would be able to pull their group together and move through to develop this manuscript and hopefully to endorse it as well. On the next slide is the timeline itself for the manuscripts. In May is when the call for proposals occurs, and then the deadline for those proposals is in September. The proposals get reviewed, and then there are comments back to the various writing teams, and there's an opportunity to update in November, and then notification of selected proposals occurs in December. There's quite a bit more information in Technical Appendix B if you'd like to look through all the descriptives here. And the next slide, the back end of the manuscript effort is that there's an opportunity for endorsement. And here we wanted to comment that any document, any development, any guideline, any policy commentary, anything that is done within ISPE that might be reviewed by external folks, might be viewed as being affiliated with ISPE, does need to engage in some way with the Public Policy Committee for endorsement. It's either they do need to move forward for endorsement, or they need to have clarifying language within that document that says that these are the author's personal views and that it is not ISPE's view. Either way, touching base with the Public Policy Committee is a really good idea, so that just any written piece of information that may be viewed as having a potential to be affiliated with ISPE is designated appropriately. If you move forward for public policy endorsement, we've worked quite a bit over the past few years to streamline that process. And so all of that is laid out in Technical Appendix D as well. Ursula?
Yeah, then there are also, there's the opportunity also for all communities to organize webinars. The Education Committee oversees the operation of all webinars. So if you have a topic you would like to promote and host a webinar, you can submit the form they offer to the committee itself. You can find it here at this link, and then they will get back to you and you can organize the webinar.
A great example of a subcommittee that works within a committee is actually our social media subcommittee of the Communications and Publications and Communications Committee. That's the words. So The social media group has put together various ways to be active more in the social media space on Twitter and LinkedIn. And any of our groups within ISBE is welcome to engage with that particular subcommittee in order to get your content out to the greater world while still keeping that branding of ISBE all together. Ursula, I think we were there.
Yeah, so then, well, we would like to remind you that if you want to use the ISBE logo, this is only, you cannot change anything. You cannot create your own logo for your community. And if you can only use the logo for official purposes. So if you use it in your group, you have to include a line underneath the logo to specifying the official name of the functional group as listed in the policy manual. Another thing which we would like to remind you is that there's also the opportunity, obviously, to create partnership and collaboration with other organizations, and the ISBE board designates strategic partnerships, and you are all encouraged to identify whatever opportunity you see of mutual advantage for ISBE and other organizations. And once you see some opportunity, you can communicate that to the board.
So
Mary Beth, you want to?
I think that brings us to the end of our slides.